Hey everyone and welcome. We are Next Level Business Advisors and this is Business Stories of Success. If you want to break through and achieve your own business success by learning from other successful business owners, you're in the right channel. For more of our content, make sure you click subscribe and don't forget the bell icon so you're the first to be notified when new videos are added. Enjoy today's video.
Hello, hello, hello. You're with Mark Adams at Next Level Business Advisors, and today we are joined by Hersh Repun of Yes Brand. This is going to be exciting because he had to overcome an internet outage just to get to us. He's a real warrior, folks, real warrior. How
Yeah,
you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mark. Thank you for having me.
I'm
Thank you for
excited to.
accommodating the internet outage
Hey, man.
in our area. It's but we're up and running.
Cool, cool. Technology is one of these funny things, right? When it's
Yeah,
working perfectly, we don't think about it, and the minute something goes wrong, everything is awry,
that's
right?
right.
Yeah,
That's right.
it's powerful how technology is so integrated in our lives.
Yeah.
So, but we're glad to have you, and we want to jump right into our business story of success because, sir, you look like a successful man.
Thank you.
Tell us
Thank
about
you.
yourself. Who are you? And tell us about your business. Yes, brand.
Yeah. Well, uh I've always been interested in comedy. Comedy is kind of where everything started for me. I was a stand-up comedian just out of college in New York. I happened to be I happened to fall into a couple of advertising courses at School of Visual Arts where I was studying filmmaking and screenwriting. Um, and it just happened. It's one of those things that I think, a big takeaway is that I do think there's kind of a master plan for us. There's kind of speaking of the internet, there's kind of a web out there of things that we can do. Um, and like when you're in a playground and there's those there's those kind of rope climbing up
Oh,
the
yes,
thing,
yes.
right? So it's like a wall of options. You could reach over here and go this way, or reach over here and go that way. It's really kind of what your spidey sense tells you to do. And in my case, um, I was torn, or I thought I was torn between comedy, like stand-up comedy, being a creative person, being an artist, going on the road, doing that whole thing, and working in advertising. I wasn't even I'm a copywriter now, but I wasn't even writing copy for advertising at the time. I was representing directors of TV commercials. And I liked that because it was like being an agent and you got to work really closely and be on set. You weren't in the
Ah,
mailroom. There was no like, in this industry, in the commercial production world, I mean, it wasn't long before I was representing directors that were doing, big commercials, Super Bowl commercials,
oh,
music videos for, Beyonce. And it was kind of cool. First in New York and then in LA. And I found a niche doing the PR for those people in that commercial production world. So it was like a B2B kind of PR, relationships with all the advertising trades, Ad Age, Ad Week, magazines like that. And I just found I really liked writing about people that I was interested in, but
okay.
not like a journalist, more like a publicist. Um, and that did lead to copywriting, writing copy, writing ads, writing, across all the different platforms that business writing covers,
Hmm.
and always keeping that comedy stuff, that humor in the mix.
Okay.
And I realized that comedy isn't just about being funny, it's also that humanity, you know what
Okay.
our foibles, our mistakes, our silliness, like, we laugh at ourselves. That's a whole part of it. And I was like, okay, well, so maybe that's why I like writing uh empathetic stories as well as things that are funny or ironic, because
Right.
I relate to the human fallibility. And that's where yes brand came from, because in improv there's a yes and rule, which means you never say no to your scene partner. Let's say they say Martians just landed outside, and and they're wearing Prada suits, and they're
Okay.
carrying briefcases. You wouldn't say no, they're not, or no,
You
they're
go,
carrying
yes,
megaphones.
and
You would say yes, and all their hats are orange, and it's like all the hats are lighting up and they're flying in the sky, because it carries the story forward. So
that's
my
cool.
my principle was never say no to an idea that a client has. Let's say, always try to work with it, always try to build on it, and see where the two of you get to with a lot of positivity and a lot of imagination.
Cool.
And the other part was selling the truth, was that I learned from my PR
Hmm.
days, because remember, I was doing PR for people in advertising. You can't, BS a BS artist. So if you're working for
Okay.
people who are selling for a living, you can't kind of snow them about talent and work. They're very jaded. They're
Savvy.
very,
Okay,
yeah,
got it.
they're savvy. So those two things kind of became the cornerstone of a career of copywriting and creating, and doing videos, and also doing comedy, doing stand-up comedy, getting better
Okay.
at that, because that makes you a better artist,
I can
going up
get
in
that.
front of
Yeah.
tough crowds, things like that. So
Right.
that's kind of, and that's kind of how it all
Evolve.
unfolded.
So now we're gonna specifically, I want to get a little bit more into your company just so I can be clear about it. Do you niche only to the entertainment with Yes Brand, or who do you work with specifically then?
Well, that's evolved. I've always niched in some way. Like at
Mhm.
first, the niche was people who worked in the advertising industry, but
Okay.
that was very good for a while. But that kind of, after the recession, that kind of became too limiting to put all my eggs in one basket. So I
Okay.
started uh, putting myself out there, as I had a friend who was a sneaker retailer in LA and owned several stores, and was always approached by sneaker brands, Adidas and Reebok and New Balance, brands like that, to do grassroots marketing, advertising, events, experiential marketing, things like that, launches, shoe launches. And he brought me in as a creative director, and we formed a little company uh, called Slam, Sporty LA Media, which was the media
Okay.
arm of his store, Sporty LA, which is still
Wow.
there on Fairfax, across from Fairfax High on Melrose in Los Angeles. And
Shout out.
yeah, shout out to Sporty.
There you
And
go.
and then we started taking on general market clients. We took on
Okay.
some fitness companies, beverage companies, and we became a successful boutique creative agency called Propeller 5, which is still in existence. But just as we were kind of hitting our stride, the pandemic hit. So we had
Okay.
done like a whole tour of the East Coast. We had gone to New York, we'd gone to Washington, we'd gone to Boston, and we had signed up, our roster for 2020. And we came back from that. We started that tour, so to speak, in January, and in March it was about actually February 28th or something when I came home. It was about March 3rd or 4th when my partner came home to his end of his trip, and he actually got COVID. He was like one of the
Ooh,
first people to get it, although he didn't
that would have
even
been
know that he had
terrifying.
it. He
Oh,
didn't know what it
okay.
was.
Right, right,
He
right.
fortunately, it wasn't that bad, but he had been to a conference in DC, and he came back, and uh and as this thing was happening, we were all freaked out. Everybody was freaked out.
Oh yeah,
All our projects were put on hold,
of
and
course.
the biggest one was with a company called Vibram, and they're based in Italy. And Italy was, if you recall, one of the places to get hit pretty badly, pretty fast.
Yeah, Europe was scary.
Yeah. And so the Vibram project was put on hold. All the stuff was put on hold. And then he was like, I think I have it. He's like, I think I have it. I don't know what's going on, but fortunately it's not too bad. And then we just kind of, like a lot of people, went underground and rethought everything that we were doing.
Right.
And I think, like a lot of people, we came to the conclusion that something was missing, that we were losing time doing a lot of busy work.
Understood. Okay.
And so that changed things for us.
Mm-hmm. So then so I know you've been in business for a while and you had this arm with your partner, but so now how does Yes Brand come into play? Because that's completely different, if I'm not correct.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Mark. It did it. So we worked on, for a while, we put our energy into a nonprofit called the Keep It Kosher Project, which is under the auspices of a larger charity called Creative Visions Foundation. And the short story with that is that it was designed to support street artists, because we were both very into street art in LA, being on Melrose Avenue at the time and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was about finding spaces and materials for young and up and coming street artists to get their positive messaging out. And that was the Keep It Kosher Project. Because when people will say, yeah, I know that's kosher. It's okay. It's kosher. Is everything kosher? And it was like,
right.
To us as Jewish guys, it was like something we grew up around, but it was a very international concept of the idea of being legit and being all good. And we started a little streetwear brand to go with it. But we, he's been an attorney and been in real estate, and we just started doing our old things again. But I was like, I don't want to go back to the sneaker marketing exclusively. And I also want to revisit this marriage of like comedy and brand. And that led to the podcast, the Yes Brand podcast, which is really becoming about copywriting and about brand storytelling.
Okay.
And my business started to just, sometimes you do something that you like and maybe you get paid, maybe you don't. And then somebody sees what you did and they call you and go, oh, I'd like to pay you to do what you just did.
Isn't that
And that's
sweet?
exactly what happened. What happened was I was looking for ways to use brand strategy and copywriting that didn't involve paid media, buying media like ads.
Okay. Right. No,
because
ad spend.
Because it's fun. It's fun to see your work on TV, on the internet, see it on billboards. We did a lot of creative billboards for brands in LA and all that. And that was fulfilling. But what happens when the client can't afford the ad buy, or they could afford it, they just don't, you're not on the same page as their media plan is.
Understood,
used to be when money was so plentiful, people would make those big media buys even before they hired the agency. Now they would hire us because they need to do something, but they might not come through with the advertising. So the bottom line with that was that I was like, well, email, you already have a list. Whether or not you sell to your list or activate your list has a lot to do with what you say. And my superpower is saying the right thing in the right voice and the right tone. So I said to a friend of mine, you have this big list. What's going on? I get your newsletters, I get your stuff, but is anybody opening it? And and he was not satisfied with what was going on. And I said, okay, well, let me take over your email list for a little while. And I did, and it started to get it did two things. Some people unsubscribed because they were
Right.
like, okay, this is aggressive marketing and I'm not interested. Other people were like, okay, yeah, I'll do a meeting. I'll take a meeting. I'll buy this class. I'll do whatever. And it changed the complexion. And very quickly after that, this is all in the last, year, last 6-7 months.
Wow.
And then another person who was a guest on one of my podcasts was like, we were talking offline and he was like, oh, I have this new product that he hadn't even told me about. I have this new product. I haven't launched it yet. I have a really good email list, but they're used to buying the low ticket app. And this is a hybrid of an app and a service. And it's actually called Magic Bookifier. And the app is on AppSumo. If you go to like appsumo.com, I don't get any commissions on the AppSumo
Not
sales,
yet, no.
but so it's an unpaid endorsement. But I do now work with them on their Hitmaker product, which is the full Magic Bookifier Hitmaker is basically where if you have podcast episodes or interviews or you've logged a lot of audiovisual content, you put it into their AI and it converts it into book form. But then the Bookifier team, the Hitmaker team, are actual book editors who work with you to create your book from start to finish through marketing and publication. So that's a high ticket, that's a high ticket service. So I helped them launch it through an email campaign, and it was really successful. And
nice.
And so now, and I figured out, that if a company has a high ticket item, like a $10,000 ticket, that's their offer, $10,000 offer.
Right. Big time.
They're going to get certain number of meetings out of this email campaign. Let's say a campaign runs 5 days. They'll get some unsubscribes, but that thins the herd. Those people are not going to buy anyway.
Correct.
And so let's say they get, 6 sales or something from that 2 weeks of that entire time. That's $60,000 in sales. And I would charge for a campaign, way less than that, and so it was like, wow, this could be really, really good. And that's how I kind of leveled up my business, because I was like, I'm doing all kinds of things. I'm like, as a writer, I'm a jack of all trades. I can write
jack of all trades.
Yeah.
Right.
I can write all these different things, but I don't want to sit here waiting for people to call me with specific writing assignments. That's a very laborious and also scientific
predictable
way.
Right.
Unpredictable, unscientific, and ultimately for that reason, not as fulfilling. Here it's like, okay, I found something that I'm really good at. It works for people. Let me make that my main service that I sell.
Got it.
That's
right. So
now
you've narrowed it down.
I've narrowed it down to that. And it fits in with all the philosophy stuff that I mentioned when we first started talking, which is the selling the truth. The way that I market, the way that I talk about brands is comes from a place of being grounded in reality. I'm not a fan of the results not typical thing, because it's like, well, if it's not typical, don't tell me. I'd rather you tell me.
You got my hopes all up.
If I'm looking for a weight loss thing, I'd rather you show me a guy that lost 18 pounds in 3 months, let's say. That's probably pretty reasonable. And, say that after that, it leveled off. He didn't lose any more weight. And that's a pretty typical result. I would say, okay, that's not bad. I can handle that.
Right.
I can handle that. It's not bad, but I don't want to see, the Jack LaLanne guy,
right.
If you remember Jack LaLanne.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I got
But
this in 3 weeks using your
yeah,
product.
right.
Yeah,
Nobody kicks
okay.
sand in my face anymore.
So let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Since you've been around for a little bit and your business has evolved, what made you decide to start your own business, to enter the world of business ownership versus simply working for different companies?
That's a great question because I have thought about, I have pursued that on occasion, and what I realized was similar to how this whole email campaign niche came up. I have a tendency to think in a way that that lends itself uh to new projects and new businesses. So I think, an entrepreneurial mind.
Okay.
I didn't know it years ago. I thought I was just creative or an artist. Now
Okay.
that I've been doing it as, in business for several years, I realize, oh, it's kind of just my nature. I'm not a person who likes the limitations of a typical role, in a
Understood.
company.
Okay.
And then as you get a little older, it's not even your choice anymore. Get a little older and it's like, well, they don't need, what do they need a grown up for? Right. You know,
They get a
uh,
kid out of college.
they can hire a kid out of college or out of, grammar school.
Right. Nowadays.
We have
Yeah.
our grammar school. We have our middle school track where we hire you right out of middle school.
Get ready for grown-up life. We can take it now. So let me ask you this
Yeah.
question, because you mentioned role, right? You don't like to be defined to a role, but as a business
Right.
owner, we all do have roles. So what role or roles do you play in your business? Do you have a team? Are you a solopreneur?
I'm a solopreneur. I've gotten it down since the pandemic. I've gone as solo as you can go, which means I have people that I work with, but I either work with them as freelancers or I work with them, on a project by project basis,
Okay, nice.
or or I tap into the teams that my clients have. A lot of clients, I always had this. You have a counterpart or somebody that you work with closely at the client, and quite often the client hasn't been utilizing that person
Hmm.
to the full extent that they could. And I would rather, and I'm starting to do more of this, I would rather go into a client's infrastructure and identify the assets that they have that they may not be using that can help me help them, than start hiring left and right. I did do that, by the way, Mark. I think,
Hmm.
I made a lot of mistakes when I had a PR firm, I had an agency, and in both cases I went through a hiring frenzy
Right.
where we were having new business. I anticipate, it was not stupid what I did, but it was in the end, um, a very big burden, you know. And I think that, I did a human design test. Are you familiar with human design?
No, I don't think I am.
I wasn't either. I was taking a peak performance class about 4 years ago. I One of the people in the group was specializing in human design, which sounded like very woo-woo kind of spiritual stuff, but it really was very practical. And the notion was that we all have designs, we all kind of fit certain categories where, you might be a manager type of personality,
Okay.
so it's personality types and jobs for which you're best suited. The long and the short of it was that my friend told me that I didn't need a business partner or a large team. I needed a small team. So
Okay.
I needed like two or three people that I could work very closely with to accomplish what I wanted. And those people could be anywhere. They could be at the client, they could be they could be freelance, or they could be part of my core team. But that I had a tendency to partner, which I did. I partnered with one person, I partnered with three people. And then I previously partnered with another person. I love my business partner that I have, the little sneaker boutique agency with. But at the same time, I think that wasn't what I needed, or nor what he needed, because we were both the same type that needed those few people. And we kept looking to hire a single person who would be what we weren't.
The bridge, right? Oh,
right. The bridge. But it was not in the human design conversation. I realized, I have to do my thing, keep it simple. And, in this case, it meant being like a solopreneur and just kind of find my way and then start to put the blocks together. Gotcha. Also, through podcasting, I greatly expanded my business network. So
that's true.
Through podcasting, I found like I was meeting so many people, just like we met,
right?
And it would be this, it wouldn't be this thing of either someone's a client or a coworker or a team member or something. We can be all kinds of things to one another, right? We can be a client to somebody. We can be a resource. That's an awesome, place to be.
Absolutely. Yes.
Be a resource, and whatever the situation or the relationship demands. And I find that's much more useful. You can always, expand a team when it's needed, but I'm taking that much slower these days than I did in the past. Yeah.
That nice lean approach. That's where I lean to as well. I like a lean team. I don't want bloat, right?
Right.
For me, it's hard enough to manage 10 people in house, but it's a lot easier, to work with. And I'm the same as an advisor. I'm often identifying the person in my client's infrastructure, say, this is the guy I'm going to be coordinating with, and we'll create whatever we need to create and then deliver it to the principals. And it empowers the employee that they have. It does a lot of different things. It helps the business to flow a lot more easily, because I'm not going to be able to monitor my client every single day, but I have someone in their place that is doing that work, so that they can kind of give it to me, and then we can go back to the owner. So I get that idea. So I love that idea. I like that lean approach. Yeah. I forgot to ask, and I usually do this in the beginning, so I apologize.
That's all right.
If someone wants to find your business, they want to work with you, I'd like for you to just give me the contact information. How do we find you?
Oh, well, the best way to find me is to go to getmessagetherapy.com, because I call myself a message therapist sometimes. And so I have the URL Get Message Therapy. And that's like the quickest way to find me professionally. But they can also go to yesbrandmethod.com, which is currently the website for the podcast, but I'll be putting some more stuff on there.
Okay, cool. So Get Message Therapy. Exactly that. GETMESSAGETHERAPY.
Correct.
Did I get it right? All right.
Correct.
I always spell it. You never know. Get massage therapy.
Well, that's the thing. And I thought, oh, well, I can't. Unfortunately, that was a URL that would be too expensive to try to buy. It was a little too general. But the play on words I did like. But what I do is I put the emphasis on message. I want people to understand. I really am about communication and about message and about brand voice. And so, I think that that's my niche. But when people ask me what I do, I just say copywriter, because it's something that people can understand. And if you're going to be about communication, you don't want to say, oh, I specialize in communication, so I'm a chief idea engineer, alternate perspective coordinator.
Almost say what?
I say, what? I'm a copywriter.
Oh, God.
I'm a syllable engineer. It's like, well, you're a very abstract communicator then.
Thank you very much. Right. Yeah. Cool.
Right.
Cool. Awesome. Awesome. So I'm going to pivot now. Our podcast is entitled Business Stories of Success. So my first question after my pivot, how do you define success? Do you know what it takes to be successful as a business owner? There are 5 keys that every business owner has to master in order to be successful. How do I know these keys? Well, I used to say that I made them up, but really, I've learned these 5 keys in 2 ways. My name is Mark Adams. I'm the owner of Next Level Business Advisors and the host of the podcast, Business Stories of Success. In the podcast, we discuss success with business owners from around the world. We talk about what it means to them, how they achieve it, and the single biggest quality or personality trait that's needed in order to be successful. As a profitability and growth business advisor, I work with business owners around the country to help them increase profit and or accelerate growth. Now I say or because some business owners aren't properly positioned to accelerate growth. In those cases, we actually focus on honing in on profitability. If you are a business owner and you're excited about improving your profit or accelerating your growth, feel free to download my free ebook, Mastering the 5 Keys to Make Your Business Successful. It's found at my website, nlbusinessadvisors.com/5 keys. That's the number 5 keys. You can also subscribe to my podcast, Business Stories of Success. And if you're really ready to start accelerating your growth, feel free to schedule your free discovery call. We'll talk about where you are today, what your goals are, your challenges, your obstacles, and I can help you to hurdle some of the hurdles to your own business success. Join me at Next Level Business Advisors and schedule your appointment today.
Okay. Well, the simplest thing I would say, and I'll tell you why I think of it this way, is happiness. Happiness is the best place to start when you either try to envision success or define it. Anything else is meaningless because, and by happiness, I obviously mean your own happiness, the happiness of the person who's seeking success. And where this, it's simple as it sounds, because, we're very, a lot of us are very goal-oriented and step conscious, right? If I'm going to get here, I need to go this, and I got to do this, and I got to do that. And I specifically don't have in any of the, prescriptions, let's say, that I give my clients, I don't have any of these, there's 5 steps, there's 10 steps. Here's 5 easy steps to blank. I try to stay away from that because I think it's more thematic and philosophical than that. I'm writing a book now. The closest thing I have is that it has 12 chapters, and each chapter has a knowing, what I call a knowing about selling the truth. But they're not like you would follow those things and boom, boom, boom. But there's value in every one.
Okay.
But the one of them is this Yes Brand method. And the Yes Brand method we talked about, which can be about comedy or building stories or building narratives, is also really kind of a recipe for happiness, in that if you look at other people's opinions with which you may agree or disagree, but you don't reject them out of hand. You don't say, well, I don't believe that, and you like shove it away. If you let it live and say, okay, that's your belief, that's your right to believe that. What if I tried to build on it and I actually accepted, even for the sake of argument, or no argument. Yes, and so you said this thing that I don't agree with, and I actually accepted it. And I said yes, and I tried to find a way to bring my point of view to also be true. Then we could actually fight less, be less polarized, and have a happier existence or coexistence with because it's never going to be that we all have one opinion, but we could have, but we do have only really one planet, and it's not the easiest existence as we look at the world. It just seems like it's fraught with conflict. So the yes and thing is also a prescription for happiness, and happiness is what I think success is about. At any given moment, are you more happy than you are unhappy? So where's the meter? It's the wealth thing, the money, legacy, stature. That's all relative, right? It's all relative to what you honestly want to be happy. You see plenty of rich, miserable people. So it's nice. It seems nice to be rich, but it doesn't necessarily, make every single person happy.
And if it doesn't make you happy, then you're not successful. That's right. Actually profound. Yeah, when we're searching for success, we're really searching for happiness.
Yeah.
That's it. I like it. That's very profound. I've heard many, many different definitions of success because I think I'm on like episode 65, 66. So I've got 65, 66 opinions. I don't think I've gotten that one before, but that's pretty cool because it's
good.
It's that boils down to brass tacks.
Yeah.
You're happy. You're successful. Yeah. I like that. So do you consider yourself successful?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. It doesn't, and it was, there were, more years than not that I wouldn't have said that. And there were times when I didn't put the two things together yet. So I would think, oh yeah, I'm successful, but I'm not happy or whatever it was. And it was like, okay, when you bring it together, like I did, then your focus is a little bit better. So I do feel like I'm successful. I feel like I have a lot of other accomplishments. I have goals that I need to pursue, but that's not going to make me a more successful person or human being. And I think also, if you look at people and you see the way they change sometimes when they get what they've been after, and all of a sudden, all the things that they wanted that now they can have, and, whatever it is, and they change, you see, oh, you changed. Oh, their values are different. So I think for me, the success part is that those things won't change. The fulfillment and the ability to do certain things for my family, for people that I care about, for society, those will increase with certain goals achieved, but that it won't make me a more successful human being. The trick will be, how do I remain a successful human being even when I attain the material objectives that I'm pursuing that I still haven't attained. I
like it. So I'm going to ask you this question, and it dovetails or ties in with this whole idea to me of happiness and success. Mm-hmm. What is the most important quality that you think is needed to be successful?
Honesty. And honesty, in my view, shouldn't be confused with morality. In other words, I'm not saying that a person in order to be successful has to be like perfect, or like I said before, their point of view has to be what I consider to be ethical, or, but honesty is very important, because if they can be honest with themselves about who they are, what they represent, that's going to be a good thing. I really believe that. I think that being honest with ourselves makes us more successful as a human being, as a person, and in business. Um, if I think about the mentors that I've had
Hmm.
and the things that I've learned from those people and the things I have aspired to emulate after seeing them, all those people have in common this honesty with themselves,
Got it.
as uncomfortable as it may be. None of those people are delusional in any way, and you could see people who you admire who are somewhat deluded or manic, right? People can be, like a mixed bag. They could have
Right.
accomplished great things but be a little bit nuts and
Yeah.
be a little bit deluded, like they get a oversized idea of themselves and all that. But the people that I've admired and tried to follow don't have that. They know themselves. They know what they're good at. They know what they're not good at. They know where they're weak. They admit where they're fallible. They're sincerely human, and I think that has made a very big impression on me over the years. So I think that's the thing that I notice that you need.
I like that. I like that. When I think of that word honesty, for some reason it always comes back to transparency for me too.
Uh-huh.
I'm
Yeah.
transparent. I am who I am, right?
Right.
I'm not going to pretend to be something I'm not. It doesn't work out well for me, at least. So
Yeah.
I like that
Right.
quality. I think it is important to be honest with yourself and with
Yeah.
others, to yourself and to others. And I think it will make a huge difference. And I like that you mentioned that you had mentors and coaches who you've been able to emulate, and that's one of the qualities that you were able to extract
Yeah.
in following that path. I'm going to ask you two more questions, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah,
I
sure.
like to ask all of my guests to be honest and tell me what's one big mistake they've made on their journey that they can share with us and hopefully other entrepreneurs can learn from, maybe to avoid.
One big mistake, and I made it more than once, so it's a good one. And
Okay.
it's a the one big mistake was don't what's the best way to phrase it? Don't wish people into roles for which they're not suited. In
Okay.
other words, it could be a business partner or a hire or a client, but don't do that thing that we sometimes do in relationships where we think we can fix the other person. Oh, they would be
Okay.
perfect if we could just do this, if we could
Once
just get
I
them to,
finish.
right? Once I finish in making them better, they're going to be perfect. So, the same way the universe gives you indications, people do as well. And I've hired people for positions where they had said to me outright, I've never did this before, or I'm not really, I don't know if I'm really, and you're like, oh, come on, you can, because you think you can see it, or they're going to be fine. They can do it. You kind of want them around, but they're not really, and I've heard some people say they just they weren't, they weren't meant to be in my life forever, or they weren't meant to be in that role forever. I just wanted them there.
Right.
And that wasn't good for them, obviously, and not good for me or my clients or the company that I had created. And so that was one big mistake, was kind of putting such an emphasis on the person, on the quality of the person, that you'd put them in a role that they didn't belong in,
They're not suited for.
that
Right.
they're
Right.
not suited for. So it isn't about having bad character judgment. And in fact, I would say that I think I have pretty good character judgment, because I look at, first of all, I'm friends with most of everybody that I've worked with, even when the fit wasn't right.
Right.
And um and I mean, we all end up having bad, client experiences, or someone, screws you over or something. I mean, that happens.
That's
That's life.
life. Yeah.
But that's not always our mistake, right? And if it
Right.
is, then we can correct it. but that's a different scenario. So that's a big one, you know.
So I'm gonna ask you one more question if you don't mind, and it's in harmony with that. So how did that mistake impact your business growth, success, positivity? How does that mistake impact you as a business owner?
Well, it in one case it signaled the demise of that business because the frame of mind that I was in, which started with me not recognizing what role I really should have been in, right? So I had all the roles all screwed up, and I had 4 people in the wrong roles.
Whoa.
4 people I love very much who I had all in the wrong roles, and the business just imploded. It just didn't. It just it just went off into an
Titanic-like
untenable
state, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
It's gonna go down.
Not that there wasn't great stuff that was made or done. It just was. It's just like the realistic expectation that it would become a perfectly functional machine that would be like that would turn around and make everybody a fortune just was not viable.
Understood.
So the outcome in that case was the business went out of business.
Wow.
And that was a big wake up call. But I think
That's a heavy lesson.
Yeah. I learned the lesson. I didn't even learn that lesson, I think, in the wake of it. I did for a while, but then I think I did that again where I think it came down to, if you want to analyze that mistake of putting people in the wrong roles, I would say go back to put yourself in the right role.
Okay.
Put yourself in the right role first.
Okay.
And that's probably a good lesson for solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, people in the workforce, because sometimes we think we can do everything. We're going to have to do everything, or we think we can't do certain things and we're wrong. And we're like, don't rely on that person. What makes you think that person can do something that you can't?
Right.
Maybe you're supposed to be in, like I never wanted to be in a CEO role because I thought I was a chief creative officer. I wasn't a chief executive officer, but I should have been a CEO in that other situation.
Right. Because it was
if I
your
had been
business,
the CEO,
you have to do that part. Yes.
Yeah, I would have found a COO. I would have found managers. I would have found, but I would have been that person shaping the vision of the company. And I relied on other people to create a vision when I was the visionary.
Right.
So,
that's
but I
tough.
didn't want to acknowledge that I was. I wanted to be the talent, like, oh, you come in and here's her. She's going to come in and do the blank, blank, blank. And, and then I would be free to be like creative, but that's not really what I wanted. It's not really what I should have been.
Right. Right.
So find the right role for yourself first.
I like that. Now that dovetails into the original last question.
Okay, good.
Which is, what advice would you give to a new business owner?
Oh, okay. Well, I kind of did give it to them.
You might have something else, but if not,
Okay. Well,
what would you give them?
All right. Well, we've given, these are good questions, by the way, Mark, because we've given a lot of, I feel like it's a lot of good advice that comes from these questions.
Absolutely.
But the big one, and this isn't new, but I think it always bears repeating, is look kindly upon your failures. Look kindly upon failure. It's beyond don't be afraid to fail. One of my friends, a guy named Justo Diaz, is I've just a brilliant informatics executive and a writer and a multi-talented individual, had said, your willingness to fail makes success an option. And so that's a great quote. And it's kind of like that. It's like, if you're willing to fail and you embrace failure as a part of your process, then you will hit upon the right answer. But you have to look at failure like it was your friend. It did something. Without it, you wouldn't have gotten where you are. Ask anyone who's achieved a tremendous amount, and say, have you ever failed? They're not going to say, no, I just simply haven't.
It just worked perfectly.
It just
I love
worked.
that
Everything
statement.
worked. Well, they
Yeah,
wouldn't be where they are. If everything worked, they would be in their first job.
Yeah, it's impossible. I like that statement, and I wrote it down. That's why you see me writing all the time. Look kindly upon your failures.
Yeah.
Especially when you're a business owner.
Yeah.
Because your failures, they can even be cataclysmic. But if you look kindly, even on those, you'll say, boy, I messed that up. The next time, I'm going to do it a little differently. So we can learn. I love it. I love it. Hey, I want to thank you so much, Hersh, for giving us some time. And you did drop a ton of knowledge. You gave me something I'd never heard of, the human design. And I really appreciate that. And I also want to thank you because you gave me your extra effort after an internet outage. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Well, my pleasure, Mark. I'm glad that it didn't delay us too much.
Awesome. Awesome. I look forward to seeing your continued journey to success.
Thank you, and likewise.